Welcome to How to Be a Humane Leader Without Losing Your Job. On this podcast, we'll explore what it means to be a compassionate and empathetic leader in today's fast-paced business world. With our combined experience and insights, we'll guide you through the ups and downs of leading with heart, all while keeping your job intact. Join us for thought-provoking discussions and actionable advice on how to be a humane leader and succeed in your career. It's time to elevate your leadership game and make a difference in the world one episode at a time. I'm Chris King, a technical IT leader from a large Fortune 100 company, along with Roberto Torres, an experienced startup engineering leader. And today we'll be discussing building trust with employees. How you doing, Roberto?
Hi, Chris. I'm doing awesome. Thank you. How about you?
It's been wonderful here in Tennessee. It is a beautiful day as usual.
Awesome. Cool.
So what's one of the things that you like to start off with in building trust with employees, specifically maybe new employees?
Well, I think that with the new employees are that communication has to be really clear, because new employees doesn't know neither the company nor the superior nor the manager, and doesn't know maybe how to interact, maybe because I'm thinking more of someone who might be an intern, someone who hasn't been in working for, maybe has worked for a little time and maybe doesn't know. So I think the best way to approach someone, in this case a new employee, might be a full clear communication with them. That would allow these people to fully understand that they will have maybe not all the stuff bluntly, but they will feel comfortable talking with their manager.
Absolutely. I think it especially those early days. First impressions are always really critical on both sides of the discussion, right? As the new employee, they need to feel comfortable communicating with you, and you need to give them a sense that you feel their newness, you feel their awkwardness, and maybe, like you said, maybe they haven't worked in a corporate environment or in a small business startup environment, and they're not sure which styles of communication are best, and generationally it can be very different in new environments. Like a lot of young people like a lot of texts. As a more senior person, I don't do as many texts. So definitely try and adapt your style, to the new person, whether they're new to your company or new into the workforce, or just trying to fit into the new culture that you have.
Yeah, and I will ask you something. Okay, that is with the new employees. How about employees who have been with you, I don't know, 1 year, 2 years? Do you stop building trust, or do you continue building it?
Yeah, my experience is that, where I've worked, certainly with very long term, even much longer than that, trust is a continual thing. It's one of those things where if you fail them in trust once, it's going to take you a real long time to rebuild it. So it's really something you're continuously building on, primarily through being as honest as you can when you can. If they're asking you questions, maybe it's about a secret, it's a merger or an acquisition or a divestiture, and you're contractually bound that you can't tell them anything. Well, what can you tell them? Because you have to communicate something. I always found that bosses who didn't have my trust, or maybe not even my boss, but peers where I didn't have their trust, was they would actually make up a lie about what's going on. No, there's no acquisition. Well, they're out there with surveyors measuring the edge of the building. They're not putting in a new sidewalk. That's not what's going on. You say something like, look, there's always secrets that I can't tell you. I can't say anything whether we are or not doing an acquisition, but the company's always looking for, new companies that might fit in. We're also always looking for divisions maybe that it don't fit into our portfolio anymore, so it's time to move on and sell them off. It's a continually open dialogue with people, and if they've known you for at least a year or two, they know as a boss or as a leader, you're going to have secrets that you just can't tell them. You can't. And if you've been open and you've had that conversation a year before, the surveyors are out measuring property lines, or there's executives walking around in suits making notes as they're walking through buildings, that they'll realize that they can trust the communication that you give them, versus the very first time you have to tell them you can't say anything. Then they're going to be suspicious of you for the rest of their careers, because once you screw it up, it's really hard to recover.
Yeah, indeed. And one thing that you mentioned that I think it is the foundation of building trust, it is having a dialogue between two people, yourself and someone else. That could be many, because in the end, you're required to have the same from your superior, from your manager. And this dialogue could be as open as you could talk to. You mentioned before, there are some things that I cannot tell you. There are some things that, but you're open to discussing, because today is really different from 23 years ago. Back in 2000, there were no social networks. Our communication weren't as easy as to text, with your mobile phone or
Yep.
some kind of stuff. I remember, I think there was a messenger tool from Microsoft, but besides that, it wasn't as easy as it is today. And people will find out what is going on.
Absolutely.
So it's better for you to tell them, these are my boundaries. I cannot go beyond them. So what I could tell you is this. And with that, I think it's not only the thing regarding acquisition. Maybe it is something regarding a promotion. Maybe two people are looking for a specific promotion, are competing against each other, and they will say, hey, am I going to be the one who's going to have the promotion or not? And maybe building trust, you might have, instead of talking with what one or the other one, you could say, okay, I will bring both of these guys and tell them, okay, I have these boundaries, and we're doing this kind of evaluation. I won't say what you got to each one, what failures or what bad things you had, but what we're trying to do is to build this trust, and so they will have bad thoughts about this, but they will have, hey, this guy had this meeting with us, and I feel comfortable with this guy, so I really trust this one, and whatever the decision, it will be the best for the company regarding this promotion.
Absolutely. And I think you made a key point of talking to two people. So let's use that example of two people competing for the same promotion. The best bosses that I experienced, and I actually experienced this in a role I was interviewing for, is that the leader brought us both together to say, look, we've not made a final decision yet, but I know one way or another, you'll find out that, this was the other person you were competing with this person. So let's not hide the fact that Roberto and Chris are both interviewing for the same job. We know we both went into the office and closed the door and talked for the boss and came back out, right? So what the leader did is just brought us together and said, look, there's more interviews to take place. You two are both strong candidates, but there's only one position to fill, so they didn't want to hide, we're talking to Roberto. Don't let Chris know that we're all, and don't let Roberto know Chris is interviewing, because sooner or later, one of us gets picked and the other one didn't. And I wouldn't want to be, let's say, promoted to the leader, not knowing that you had interviewed it too. And then all of a sudden you're unhappy. And I'm like, why is Roberto so sad? He should be happy for me. I got this promotion. Why is he sad? Or vice versa, right? You get it, and I'm like, Roberto, what'd you do to me? and you have no idea why. So I think those kinds of open communications where even 20 years ago, culturally, I would say you wouldn't do that. But nowadays you have to, because with those social networks, people find out what's going on. People call it gossip, but the reality is I never considered it gossip. It's the culture that's taking place in your business. That's not gossip. That's life. Promotions, acquisitions, demotions, those.
I didn't hear you. You got it on mute.
Cut.
Okay, great.
Retake, sorry there. And so if you don't openly talk to your employees, and that culture of keeping secrets starts to develop, then you can't develop trust with your employees. Again, I know you got to have some secrets, but you should have way less secrets than you did 20 years ago in business world, because it's part of the culture to communicate. It's not gossip. It's communicating what's happening in your community, which is your work environment. It's your community. It's not gossip. It's what's going on.
Yeah. And focusing on that, let's put this example. If an employee reaches you and is being vulnerable to you, and I mean it has some problem, maybe a personal problem, or it has frustration regarding a project, it's better for you that these people will tell you this frustration or how does it feel, that you found out from someone else that it is not these people. So with this, I want to ask you, does it mean that if the employee is being vulnerable to you, you show your vulnerability as well? Or do you put maybe a wall between the employee and you will show your vulnerability?
Personally, I try to show my vulnerability. I believe I did. Always, you could ask my employees, and maybe not all of them felt that way, but I felt I was trying to show them where my weaknesses were. I mean, I was one of the first people to always say, I don't understand that, explain it to me. You know more about it. This was to people that reported to me. Supposedly the leader, a lot of people think of the leader knowing everything. I reverse that. Look, I'm a pretty smart guy, but there's a lot of stuff I don't know. And I would always very quickly try and say, I don't understand that. Can you explain it to me better? Because I think when you're open and humane about that kind of stuff as a humane leader, then there's trust that, well, then if they're misunderstanding something that I'm communicating to them, they'll feel more open and vulnerable and be safe to tell me, hey, Chris, I don't really understand that. Can you explain it again, or try a different way to explain what you need me to do? That's the kind of open communication you need to successfully coach people. If they're hiding when they're struggling, if they don't feel they can openly communicate with you and tell you when they're having trouble, you can't coach as effectively. You can't, because then you're only coaching for the problems you see physically. You won't know the struggles that they're having that you don't actually observe. And unless you're shoulder surfing them, how are you going to know when they're struggling, right? It's got to be that communication.
Yeah, indeed. And I asked you this because in the previous company, I have a lead, and this guy had really big problems with his wife, and he was being vulnerable with me. So I was I'm still a really open guy, and I show a lot of empathy with him, and he and I began having a strong bond, you know. And when we had these one-on-ones, we were really open, and that allowed us to work even better. And one thing that happened, well, I will tell you two. The first one is using the word that you said, coach. I was beginning to be a coach for him because he was really smart. He was more intelligent than myself. He was he has superb knowledge regarding backend way higher than myself, but he showed a lot of wisdom, learning about himself when I talked with him, because I was being part of a coach of certain things that he wasn't. That's the first one. And the second one was that all leads, all heads, and all, yes, we were in a leadership seminary. And we had, in one exercise, we had to write about someone else. We had to write about everyone about who was in the seminary. But he wrote to me that he really appreciated the vulnerability that I had with him, because with that, he saw where he was. He saw that he had to fix his problems in order to, to be well at first, and second, to be productive within the company, because he wasn't good at all. So I think really building trust with employees is not also having communication and also being a coach. It has to be an empathy factor with it, to become to have a really good trust with them.
I think that being that humane leader, right, our constant theme, and our work that we do to build that trust is ongoing. It is all the time. You have to be on your game all the time. Because just like I said, you express that empathy to him, but what if he had come to you and that was a day, I don't know, you were angry over something, right? Your kids broke one of your favorite somethings, or they scratched the car, or you got a traffic ticket for speeding on the way to work and you're in a bad mood. You always got to be ready to set that aside and say, how can I help you? And if you don't do those things, the communication starts to break down. They're a little worried. Why is Roberto unhappy? Is it something I did? I think that the more you can continually plant the seeds, continually be supportive to people, and be as honest as you can, then they'll be as honest with you as they feel comfortable. So you just got to keep doing it all the time, all the time.
Yeah, indeed. And one thing is, we're talking right now about our reports, but what if we are the report of someone else? And these people arrives pissed off because, I don't know, they happen with something, and we have a problem. We're going to have this communication. Neither is going to be, we're going to have distrust. And using your words is building trust. It's an ongoing effort that we must do on a constantly basis. Not because I have a report and they have to, I don't know, working some code or the infrastructure, I don't know, or something like that. We had to keep going and going and going, because with that, I think we are creating good humans, not creating, excuse me. We're helping humans to become much better leaders, to become more humane persons, and that will help other people, that it will have a positive impact among other people.
Without a doubt. I had an interesting conversation this week with a contractor I was working with, and it evolved really around that whole thing, is that if you build that rapport with someone, that it builds because they had a comfortable and good experience with you, and they learned some skills depending on what it was, and they're more likely to pass that on to somebody else. And it kind of is, and they tell two friends, and they tell two friends, and they tell two friends, right? So it just grows. So the better you communicate and build that trust, and maybe you are able to do it with one person first, that gives you some skills, they also gain some skills. Then maybe when they're working in some team, they will be a more humane coworker, even if they're not a leader yet, right? You become a more humane coworker, and all those skills help. So it's something that you learn over time. You're not going to learn it in a day. You're not going to establish trust in a day, but it works in a lot of different things. And, this contractor I was working with, it was really like, it even evolves into things you're doing outside of work, because he found himself doing more for others, like, helping the little old lady at the grocery store lift her bags into the car, kind of thing. You just become more humane and more communicative, and the world is just a better place because you're being more humane and you're communicating in a kinder, more gentler way.
Yeah, one thing is when we are in need of something, and we require help, one of the first persons we're going to talk to is the one that we have the most trust with this person, And if it's something related to work and you don't know to whom you had to speak, it's so frustrating and sad. But the opposite, if you have a problem and okay, I have this problem, I'm going to talk with these people, person, or this one, or this lady, or this guy, it's because you have built so much trust that you can talk with them and you will receive a solution, which is something that you're looking for, no?
Yeah, absolutely. Completely agree. I think it's kind of that kind of trust and rapport is your personal network, right? Sometimes it's not your boss you're going to for help, but as you've been a humane coworker and you've established trust with your peers, you'll feel more comfortable asking them questions. And they may not know the answer, but they may know the person who does have the answer and will help direct you. And that only happens when you have enough trust and you feel comfortable asking them, something that maybe you're afraid that everybody thinks I should know this already, and they'll feel I'm not an expert if I ask the question. But if you build that trust, it's okay that you don't know everything, and it's okay to ask the questions and get it right. Much better to feel comfortable communicating and asking the question than going forward and doing something wrong or doing a lot of work that was in the wrong direction, and now you just wasted 8 hours, 20 hours, 40 hours, whatever it is, going down a path, when in reality, if you would have communicated, maybe you need to do something different, right? So it is definitely a two-way street, both upwards, right? If I'm reporting to my boss and I'm not sure on what I'm supposed to do, but I'm going to put 20 hours into it, and then I'm going to check with him because I'm afraid to talk to him or don't feel comfortable asking him, well, then I would have wasted all that time. So definitely, you got to have some confidence. You have to have that trust in the person, that you can ask that early on, or otherwise, actually, you're probably going to get a lot more stress too. Is that should I be working on this? And you invest all that time, and turns out you're right to be nervous about it because it was the wrong thing to be working on.
Yeah, indeed. Let me add some hard data. I added a poll on LinkedIn, and I asked which best practice is the most effective to build trust within your employees, and we have the following: 33% told me there was clear and crystal communication. 20% said growth opportunities. 23% said empathy and comprehension. 23% said acknowledging good work. Okay, so all these, among other stuff that we have spoke, are the things that I think are required. And I asked in the Ghana peer community what is required to build trust with employees, and I had pretty good answers. One of them was continuous communication. Other people say honesty, transparency, and both the drive and ability to help, because it is a drive to say this. One thing was someone said open discussions and active listening, which is crucial. Active listening is something you have to listen twice and speak once to have this. And the other one was transparency, being open and honest with employees, and empathy by showing understanding and real concern for your employees. employees, because real concern is something really important. People will know, oh man, this guy is just throwing words to me, you know, he doesn't really concern. He's just, but when you show emotion, when you say, okay, what is going on and everything, people will see this, and they will say, okay, this guy, this lady is showing real concern for me.
Agreed. I completely agree.
Okay, cool. So with this, I think we could do a wrap up unless you have something else to add.
Let's see. No, I don't. But I'm hoping all the listeners and those that are viewing also feel comfortable in our communication and can ask us any other questions that they might have in the chats and in the comments from YouTube, as an example. We're always looking for topics that you might find helpful. So I'll be a humane leader and open communication and build some trust with the folks that are listening to us. We really would like to hear from you.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for tuning in to another episode of How to Be a Humane Leader Without Losing Your Job. We hope you found our discussion insightful and informative. Remember, being a humane leader isn't just about being kind and compassionate, it's about being smart and strategic in your approach. So take what you've learned today and apply it to your leadership style and see the positive impact it can have both on your team and your career. And don't forget, you can catch all our episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Anchor, and now on YouTube too. Don't forget to join us next Friday for another episode on how to be a humane leader without losing your job, when we'll be discussing how to communicate effectively with your employees. No, that's not right. Shoot.
Well,
That
yeah,
wasn't. Oh, shoot, it was right.
it's okay.
Sorry. Have a great
Okay.
day, everybody.
It's okay. Bye bye.